I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Daniel, and I was married to Rachel for 6 years. Everything seemed perfect from the outside. We had a nice house in a decent neighborhood, good jobs, and a wonderful circle of friends. Rachel worked as an urban gun violence prevention coordinator, which was a role she was passionate about. I admired her dedication to making our community safer, but I started to feel like something was off in our marriage. It began with small changes, little things that I brushed off as stress from work or life in general. Rachel started coming home later than usual, often saying she was at a meeting or working on some project. At first, I believed her. After all, her job was important and I wanted to support her. But then there were the nights I'd wait up, only to find her texting on her phone, hastily putting it away when I walked into the room. She claimed she was just wrapping up details about her work initiatives. It was hard to argue with that logic, but the nagging feeling in my gut grew stronger. The real turning point came. One Saturday afternoon while I was cleaning out the garage, I stumbled across an old box filled with paperwork from Rachel's work. Among the reports, I found a series of emails printed out, emails that made my heart drop. They were flirty, obviously inappropriate, and came from someone named Mark, her urban gun violence prevention coordinator coworker. The way they spoke to each other was so casual, like they were sharing secrets behind my back. I felt sick to my stomach, and the worst part. I recognized the tone of the messages. They were intimate, teasing, and borderline sexual. I confronted Rachel later that evening, my hands trembling as I held the incriminating evidence. I could see her face change when she caught sight of the papers. "What's this?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper. It was hard to breathe, and I could feel rage and sorrow battling within me. "What are you talking about, Daniel?" she replied, trying to play innocent. But I could see the panic in her eyes, and it fueled my anger even more. I threw the emails at her, watching as they fluttered to the ground like confetti at a bad party. "Do give me that. You've been lying to me. I deserve an explanation," I said, my voice rising. Rachel's face went pale, and for a moment I thought she might finally come clean. Instead, she went on the defensive. "I can explain. You don't understand how hard my job is. Mark is just a friend. We have to work closely together, and sometimes we joke around. It's nothing," she insisted, her tone shifting from panic to irritation. "You're overreacting." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife, the woman I trusted with my heart, was standing there, denying everything. It felt like I was living in a bad dream. I called her out on her lies, detailing everything I had found, but she simply waved it away. "You're being ridiculous. You can't seriously think I would cheat on you," she said, and in that moment it felt like she was just dismissing my feelings completely. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. I went from shock to anger, and then to this overwhelming sadness. I wanted to believe her, but as each minute passed, it was clear she was more focused on her excuses than on salvaging our marriage. I remember feeling painfully alone, like I was spiraling into a dark corner where trust had completely disappeared. After the confrontation, I took a long walk to clear my mind. I couldn't help but replay our years together in my head, all the laughs, the struggles, the dreams we shared. It was as if I was watching a movie reel of my life, but this time, the ending felt like a tragedy. I thought about all the times I had supported her, all the sacrifices I made, and it felt like it meant nothing. Eventually, as I walked, I had to confront the reality of my situation. What was I supposed to do now? I felt so lost and betrayed, and I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. Something had to change, but what? My heart raced as I began to formulate a plan, not just for revenge, but for my own survival and healing. I wanted to take control back. I needed to figure out how to move forward in this twisted reality that had become my life. It was time to identify all the threats to my emotional safety, and that meant dissecting not only Rachel's actions but my own feelings and choices. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the storm ahead. After that initial confrontation, I felt like I had been tossed into a whirlwind of emotions. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. Rachel, my partner, had shattered the trust we had built over the years. I kept thinking about what she said during our argument. "You're overreacting." echoed in my head like a haunting refrain. It struck me how easily she dismissed my feelings as if they were nothing more than an inconvenience. Days turned into a blur of work and restless nights. I tried to keep my routine intact, but every little thing reminded me of the betrayal. I couldn't stand being in the same room as her, yet I was torn between anger and a desperate hope that we could somehow salvage what was left of our marriage. The truth was, I didn't want to lose her. I'd invested so much time, love, and effort into our relationship, but it was clear that the person I thought I knew was slipping away. While I was at work, I found myself distracted. I could hardly focus on anything. I kept replaying the conversations we had, the moments we shared, and every time Rachel would laugh at something I said, thinking that we were happy. It was like a cruel trick my mind was playing on me. I needed to know the truth, and that meant digging deeper. So I started observing her more closely. I paid attention to her phone habits, her late-night meetings, and the way she interacted with Mark. At first, it felt like I was being paranoid, but each piece of evidence I gathered only confirmed my worst fears. I saw how she lit up when her phone dinged with a message, how she would smile secretively while texting. It was infuriating. I began to feel like a private investigator, and with every new piece of information, my resolve only hardened. I decided to confront her again, but this time I would come prepared. I wanted to confront her with undeniable proof of her infidelity. So I started following her during the day. It was risky and reckless, but I felt I had no other choice. I needed to see if she was actually meeting Mark or if it was all in my head. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. One Friday, I took the day off work under the guise of needing a mental health day. I followed Rachel to a cafe down the street from her office. I sat a discreet distance away, heart pounding in my chest. I watched her through the window, and it felt surreal, like I was in a reality show where I was both the viewer and the unwilling participant. After a few minutes, Mark appeared, and my stomach sank. They greeted each other with a hug that lingered too long, and my breath hitched. I felt like I was watching a slow-motion train wreck. They sat together, leaning in closer than friends should, and shared what seemed like an intimate conversation. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures, my hands shaking as I captured the betrayal happening right before my eyes. Rachel laughed at something Mark said, the sound cutting through the silence of my thoughts. It was such a familiar sound, something I'd grown to love. But now it felt like a dagger twisting deeper into my heart. I watched them for what felt like hours, but in reality it was only about 30 minutes. Eventually, they got up and walked to a nearby park. I couldn't take it anymore, I had to do something. With my heart racing, I followed them into the park. I kept my distance, but at this point I was just angry. I wanted them to see me, to feel the weight of what they were doing. I had prepared myself for this moment, and I was ready to confront Rachel and Mark together. I had to make her understand what she was throwing away. Just as I was about to approach them, Rachel turned her head and caught a glimpse of me from across the park. Her face fell, and I knew she recognized the look of betrayal in my eyes. She looked frozen for a moment, and then I saw a flicker of panic wash over her. Without thinking, I marched straight toward them, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" Rachel exclaimed, her voice a mix of shock and disbelief. Mark's expression changed as he noticed me, moving to stand protectively in front of Rachel. It was infuriating, the audacity of this man was overwhelming. My blood boiled as I glared at him. "I came to see my wife, but it looks like she's been busy," I replied, my voice steady despite the chaos around me. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "No more lies, Rachel. I have everything I need to know. How could you do this to me, to us?" Mark attempted to intervene, but I didn't want to hear his excuses. This confrontation was between Rachel and me. I needed her to understand the gravity of what she had done, and it was clear that she was not ready for this conversation. She looked torn, guilt written all over her face, yet I expected her to fight for us, to deny everything, to stand against Mark and defend our relationship. Instead, she just stood there, her silence confirming everything. It was a moment I would never forget, the moment I realized that my wife had chosen someone else. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a sense of betrayal that was almost overwhelming. I walked away, my heart shattered, knowing that this was the beginning of a long battle for my heart and my future. I left the park that day feeling like a ghost wandering through my own life. The confrontation had spiraled into chaos, and I was left with more questions than answers. Rachel hadn't even tried to defend herself. Her silence spoke louder than any words she could have uttered. I felt a hollow ache in my chest, a deep-seated anguish that wouldn't let go. It was as if I had lost not just my wife but the very foundation of my life. When I got home, I paced the living room like a caged animal. My mind raced as I tried to piece together everything I had witnessed. I was angry, I was hurt, I felt betrayed. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to make sense of the whirlwind that was now my reality. But mostly I felt utterly defeated. I thought about our life together, how we built it brick by brick, how I had always believed we were happy. Now I was left with doubt and despair. Rachel walked in a few hours later, her face pale and drawn, and for a moment I thought she might actually show some remorse. I wanted to see flicker of guilt or sadness in her eyes, but all I got was her trademark defiance. She stepped into the living room with an air of confidence, as if she still believed she could talk her way out of this mess. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice cold. "I thought you were out with Mark." She rolled her eyes, her typical response when she felt cornered. "I was at a meeting, Daniel. You can't just barge in on my personal life like this. This is ridiculous." "Ridiculous? You're the one having an affair." "How is that not ridiculous?" I shot back. The anger that had been simmering inside me erupted into a fiery confrontation, and for the first time I felt like I was reclaiming some power in the situation. "Daniel, stop it. You're blowing this out of proportion," she insisted, crossing her arms defiantly. "Mark and I are just friends. We've always had a special bond. You wouldn't understand." "Friends? Oh, please. You don't hug your friends like that, and you sure as hell don't share intimate conversations in parks." I spat, my mind racing with images of their laughter together, of her leaning in closer to him, whispering secrets. "You think I'm an idiot?" Rachel took a deep breath, her expression shifting from defiance to something more vulnerable. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could keep things separate," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "I never meant for it to go this far." "Too late for that," I replied, bitterness lacing my words. "You've already crossed the line. You've betrayed my trust." Her eyes filled with frustration. "I was lonely, Daniel. You don't even see how hard I've been working. You just sit there and act like everything is fine while I'm drowning in responsibilities. I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood what I was going through." The excuses flowed like water, and I could feel my heart hardening as she spoke. "Is that really your excuse? You couldn't have come to me. You couldn't have tried to communicate." I shot back, feeling a swell of anger rise within me. "Instead, you chose to cheat. That's not just a mistake, that's a choice. I didn't choose to hurt you," she cried, the first real emotion I'd seen from her since this all began. I felt lost. I thought you didn't want me anymore." I stared at her, searching her face for some sign of the woman I had fallen in love with. "It's not that I didn't want you, Rachel. You were the one shutting me out, pushing me away while you were busy with him. I can't believe you would throw everything away for a friendship." The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment it felt like we were both trapped in a web of our creation, caught between anger and heartache. I wanted to shake her, to scream at her to wake up and see the reality she had created. But there was also a part of me that wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be okay. I was torn. It felt like I was losing my mind. "Do you love him?" I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Rachel's eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she might actually answer honestly. I don't know." She stammered, her bravado slipping away. "It's complicated. Complicated. You have a choice, Rachel. You either want to be with him or you want to be with me. You can't have both," I replied, my heart racing. "I deserve to know where I stand in this." With those words, I finally set the boundary I should have established long ago. I was done with the confusion, the lies, and the uncertainty. It was time for me to take control of my narrative, even if it meant walking away from everything I once held dear. Rachel's expression shifted between panic and anger. "You can't just leave me. You don't mean that," she yelled, her voice rising in desperation. I'm your wife. We can work through this. Can we? I shot back, my voice unwavering. Can we really work through this after everything? I don't know if I can forgive you for what you've done. The truth was, I didn't want to be in this situation. I wanted the Rachel I once knew, the one who laughed with me and shared her dreams. But that woman felt like a distant memory, lost in the shadows of her betrayal. The emotional toll was becoming too much for me to bear, and I knew I had to make a choice. As part of my decision, I took a step back, trying to think clearly amidst the chaos. I couldn't let her manipulate my feelings anymore. It was time to figure out what I truly wanted for myself. It was time to start rebuilding, but this time it would be about my safety and happiness first. That's when I made my decision. I couldn't continue living in this toxic environment, and if Rachel wanted to fight for our marriage, she'd have to show me she was willing to put in the work. I needed space to think, to breathe, and to heal. I would confront the reality of my feelings and figure out what came next, one step at a time. I just hoped Rachel would realize the gravity of her choices before it was too late. After the confrontation, I needed time to process everything. I chose to stay with a friend for a few days, giving myself some much-needed distance from Rachel. The decision took a toll on me, but it felt necessary. I did want to be around her while my emotions were still so raw. I needed clarity, and I would never find that in the turmoil of our shared home. Staying with my friend, Jason, was a mixed blessing. He knew what was going on and offered his support, but I felt like a broken record, repeating my story over and over. Each time I recounted the events, it felt like I was peeling back layers of pain. I could see the disbelief in his eyes when I told him about Rachel's affair. "I can't believe she would do that to you," he said, shaking his head. "You deserve better, man." I appreciated his reassurance, but it didn't change the fact that I was still grappling with the loss of my marriage. I spent my days working out, trying to channel my anger and frustration into something productive. I hit the gym hard, savoring the burn of my muscles. It was an outlet, a distraction, and for a brief moment after a good workout, I would feel a semblance of normalcy returning to my life. But then I would come back to the silent apartment and realize the emptiness that surrounded me. I missed Rachel. I missed her laughter, her smile, and even her annoying habits. I wondered if she was truly remorseful or if she was just playing the victim in her own little drama. I had put my heart and soul into our relationship, and now it felt like it had all been a lie. One night, while lying in Jason's guest bedroom, I received a text from Rachel. My heart raced as I read it. "Can we talk? I need to explain everything." I stared at the message for what felt like hours, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand the truth, to see if she had really changed. But the other part, the part that was learning to prioritize my own well-being, urged me to keep my distance. I didn't respond right away. My emotions were still too volatile. Instead, I tossed my phone aside and tried to distract myself by binge-watching a new series Jason had recommended. But I couldn't focus on the screen. My mind kept wandering back to Rachel. What did she want to say? Was it just more excuses, or was she finally ready to accept responsibility for her actions? Eventually, I decided to respond. I sent a simple message back: "I'll meet you tomorrow." I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation would be crucial in determining what came next. I needed to hear her side, but I was also prepared to lay down the law. No more excuses, no more lies. The next day, we agreed to meet at a coffee shop a few blocks from my apartment. As I walked there, my stomach twisted with anxiety. I had no idea what to expect. Would Rachel try to manipulate my feelings again? Would she actually show genuine remorse? I needed answers, but I also needed to be careful not to fall back into the trap of her charm. When I arrived at the cafe, I spotted Rachel sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup. She looked different. Her hair was tousled, and her eyes appeared puffy, as if she hadn't slept well. As I approached her, I could see that she was nervous. For the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand, and it felt empowering. "I'm glad you came," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been thinking a lot about everything." "Yeah, I hope so," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Because I need the truth, Rachel. I don't want to hear any more excuses. I want to know why you did this. Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine for understanding. I never meant to hurt you. I got caught up in my work and— Stop. Just stop right there, I interjected. This isn't about your job or being overwhelmed. You made a choice to cheat on me. You need to own that. She flinched at my words, and I could see the guilt wash over her. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been a terrible partner. I was lonely and I thought I could handle it. I thought I was strong enough to keep everything separate, but I was wrong, she admitted, her voice cracking. Mark was there for me when you were. Was he? I asked, leaning forward. Or did you just want an escape? Did you think that being with him would solve your problems? Because all it did was create a whole new set of issues. Tears welled in her eyes and she nodded, clearly overwhelmed. I messed up, Daniel. I can't take back what I did, but I want to make it right. I want to work on us. I miss you so much and I can't imagine my life without you. Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. Part of me longed to believe her, to return to the days where we were happy and in love. But the scars from her betrayal were still fresh, and I couldn't ignore the hurt that lingered. Rachel, I began slowly, you need to understand that I can't just forget everything. You've broken my trust and it's going to take time to rebuild it. I know, she started, but I cut her off again. No, you don't. This isn't just about you being sorry. It's about actions. If you want to fix this, it's going to require work. Not just from me, but from you too. I need to see that you're committed to making this right. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I will do whatever it takes, I promise. I'll go to therapy, I'll pick up more shifts at work, and I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve. As I listened to her, I realized that I didn't want to make a decision immediately. It was too soon, and I needed to evaluate my feelings. I wasn't ready to forgive her just yet, but I was willing to listen. I needed to see if she'd follow through on her promises. Let's take this one day at a time, I said, my voice softer now. But I need you to know that if you ever go back to Mark or betray me again, I won't hesitate to walk away for good. Her expression shifted to one of understanding. I get it, and I accept that. Just give me a chance to show you I can be better. As we sat there, the weight of our conversation hung in the air. I realized that while my heart was still broken, there was a flicker of hope. I had learned that love could endure even in the darkest of times, but it would take work, real work, from both of us. I wasn't sure where this path would lead, but for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt like I had a choice, and that choice was mine to make. After our conversation at the cafe, a fragile truce settled between Rachel and me. I returned to my apartment with a mix of hope and skepticism. Rachel had promised to work on herself, to seek therapy and commit to rebuilding our relationship, but I knew that promises were easy to make and harder to keep. I remained cautious, aware that the scars of betrayal would take time to heal. Over the next few weeks, Rachel made a genuine effort to show me she was serious about repairing our marriage. She started therapy right away, and I could see she was committed to understanding her actions and the emotional void that had led her to infidelity. She worked late nights at her job and emphasized her dedication to community safety initiatives. But this time, she included me in her plans, sharing her challenges and goals rather than shutting me out. Some nights she would come home exhausted, but instead of isolating herself with her phone, she would initiate conversations. We would sit on the couch, sipping tea and talking about everything from our day-to-day lives to our hopes for the future. I could see glimpses of the Rachel I once knew, the one who was vibrant and full of dreams. Yet there was still a lingering doubt in the back of my mind, reminding me of the betrayal that had shattered our trust. While things were seemingly improving, I was still on guard. I scrutinized every word, every action, looking for any signs that she might revert to her old ways. I fell into an emotional roller coaster, swinging between cautious optimism and deep-seated fear. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing between wanting to believe her and protecting my own heart. Despite my reservations, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. I began to share my own feelings more openly, something I had struggled with in the past. I let her know when I felt uneasy about her late nights at work or when she received a text from Mark. Rachel was receptive, and I could tell she was trying to understand the impact her actions had on me. Our conversations often turned into discussions about boundaries, accountability, and the importance of openness. One night, while we were watching a movie together, Rachel turned to me, her eyes serious. "Daniel, I know I've hurt you and I can't change the past. I want to build a future with you, but I need you to trust me again," she said, her voice laced with vulnerability. I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "Trust isn't something that can be given back easily, Rachel. It's going to take time. I need to see consistency in your actions. I need to know that you're committed to this and that you won't slip back into old patterns." "I promise I will. I'm going to be transparent and I'm going to keep you in the loop about everything. You have my word," she said earnestly. I nodded, wanting to believe her but knowing that actions speak louder than words. As the weeks turned into months, I noticed a gradual shift in our dynamic. Rachel was making an effort to be more present, and for the first time, it felt like we were tackling our problems together instead of allowing them to fester. Still, there were moments when doubt crept in. I had to remind myself that healing was linear. I experienced random waves of jealousy and insecurity, especially when Rachel mentioned her coworkers or the community events she organized. I would catch myself imagining her with Mark, and the thought would gnaw at me. It felt like trying to stitch a wound that refused to close. One evening, while Rachel was out for a work event, I found myself scrolling through her social media posts. I stumbled upon pictures of her smiling with Mark, taken during a recent community outreach program. My heart sank as a familiar anger bubbled to the surface. The fear of her slipping back into that world consumed me. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, afraid to step back from the precipice. When she returned home that night, I was already waiting for her in the living room, my emotions churning. I'd been stewing over the pictures for hours, and I knew I needed to address it. "Rachel, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her face fell and I could see the concern in her eyes. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, fighting against the wave of hurt that threatened to overwhelm me. "I saw the photos from the outreach event. You looked happy with Mark." She froze, her expression shifting from concern to defensiveness. "Daniel, they were just pictures. We were working together. It doesn't mean anything." "It doesn't matter," I interrupted, frustration bubbling over. "It's not about the pictures themselves, it's about how I feel seeing you with him. I thought we were past all this. I need to know that you're not slipping back into that relationship." "I'm not." "You have to believe me," she pleaded, her voice rising. "I'm committed to us, but you need to trust me. I can't keep living under this cloud of doubt." "Trust doesn't come easy after what you did, Rachel. I'm trying, but it feels like I'm constantly reminded of the past," I replied, my voice quivering with emotion. "I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to move forward, but every time I see you with him, it brings back all the hurt. I can't pretend it doesn't affect me." Rachel took a step closer, her eyes earnest. "I understand, and I'm truly sorry for what I've put you through. I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't change the past. I can only promise you that I'm working hard to earn back your trust." Her words cut through the turmoil inside me, and for a moment I saw the sincerity in her eyes. But the fear still lingered, like a shadow I couldn't shake. "I need to know you're committed to keeping your distance from him. No more late-night meetings without transparency, and I need to be included in conversations about your work." Rachel nodded, her expression softening. "Of course, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to be with you, and I need you to believe that." As we talked, I felt a flicker of hope reignite within me. It was a long road ahead, and I knew there would be obstacles. But I also realized that healing could only happen if we faced our challenges together. I had to let go of my fear and allow Rachel the chance to prove that she was committed to mending our relationship. That night, as we fell asleep side by side, I knew that while our journey was far from over, we were both willing to put in the effort. It might take time, but I had hoped that we could rebuild our trust, one conversation at a time. And for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to embrace the uncertain future we had ahead of us. As the weeks turned into months, we navigated the complexities of rebuilding trust in our marriage. I became more attuned to Rachel's efforts to change, while she worked diligently on her therapy and opened up more about her past struggles. It was a delicate dance between vulnerability and the shadows of betrayal, but I was committed to taking each step with her. We established new boundaries together, discussing open communication about work events and ensuring that we didn't let our lives drift into separate worlds again. Rachel began to involve me in her work-related activities more, including inviting me to community events. I appreciated the effort and felt like I was gaining a better understanding of her role, which had always been such a significant part of her life. One afternoon, she asked me if I would attend an upcoming fundraiser for her organization, a gathering that would feature work from various community partners including Mark. I felt a knot form in my stomach. The idea of seeing Mark again made my heart race, but I didn't want to let my fear dictate our lives. "I'll go," I told her, trying to sound confident, "but I want to make sure we stay close, okay?" Rachel smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Of course. I want you there with me. You're my partner and I don't want you to feel left out anymore." The night of the fundraiser arrived and I dressed carefully, trying to project an air of confidence despite the unease swirling inside me. When we arrived at the venue, a chic local gallery, I could feel the energy of the crowd, the laughter, the chatter, the clinking of glasses. Rachel looked beautiful in her dress, and I had to remind myself that I was there to support her in our marriage, not to dwell on past betrayals. As we mingled, I noticed Mark across the room, engaged in conversation with another attendee. My heart raced, and I felt the familiar pang of jealousy creeping in. But this time, I tried to breathe through it and focus on Rachel. She introduced me to colleagues, and we laughed together, sharing small moments that reminded me of the connection we had always shared. Eventually, Rachel led me over to Mark, and I felt a wave of tension wash over me. "Hey, Daniel," Mark greeted with a smile, extending his hand. I shook it firmly, trying to maintain my composure. I could sense Rachel's tension as well, and it only added to the weight of the moment. "You're the one I've heard so much about," Mark said, looking directly at me. "Rachel talks about you all the time." "Yeah," I replied, keeping my voice level. "I've been hearing about you too." My words felt like a thinly veiled warning, and I could see Mark's expression shift slightly, as if he understood the underlying tension in the air. Rachel stepped in to change the topic. "We're excited about this fundraiser. It's a great cause," she said, her voice brightening. The conversation moved forward, but I could feel the stakes of this encounter. I was determined to show that I wouldn't be intimidated or threatened by Mark, but inside, I was still grappling with feelings of insecurity. As the evening progressed, I watched Rachel shine in her element, engaging with community members and discussing her initiatives passionately. I couldn't help but feel pride for her, despite the circumstances. She was strong, dedicated, and truly came to life in her work. I realized that my jealousy stemmed from a sense of fear over losing someone so incredible, but I also recognized that I needed to trust her. When the evening came to a close, Rachel and I walked to the car together. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief as we got in. "You did great tonight," I said, glancing at her with genuine admiration. "Thanks, I was worried about you being uncomfortable, especially with Mark there," she admitted, biting her lip. "But I'm so glad you came, it meant a lot to me." "I was nervous, I won't lie," I confessed, feeling lighter as the weight of the evening lifted off my shoulders. "But I'm trying to trust you. We're in this together." Rachel placed her hand on mine, and the warmth of her touch settled my heart. "We are, and I promise I'll keep being transparent. I'll do everything I can to prove that I'm committed to us." Over the next few months, our relationship continued to improve. We went to couples therapy together, where we explored deeper issues that had contributed to our rift. It was uncomfortable at times, but it felt necessary. We learned to listen to each other without judgment and to communicate our needs openly. It was hard work, but I could feel our bond strengthening. The healing process was gradual, and there were moments of doubt for both of us. However, I began to see Rachel's growth. I noticed her taking accountability for her actions and prioritizing our relationship in ways she hadn't before. She started writing me little notes, expressing her love and appreciation, and those small gestures helped me heal the wounds in my heart. Eventually, we reached a point where I could talk about her past without the fear of losing my composure. I learned to separate her past mistakes from my current feelings. I understood that while the betrayal had changed our relationship, it didn't have to define our future. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset, I took a moment to reflect on how far we had come. You know, I said, breaking the comfortable silence, I'm proud of us. I know we still have a long way to go, but I can see us growing together. Rachel smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. I am too. I never want to take what we have for granted again. I've learned so much about myself, and I'm grateful for the chance to rebuild. In that moment, I realized how transformative this experience had been. I had learned the importance of setting boundaries and being honest about my feelings. I had learned that love could withstand the darkest storms, but only if both partners were willing to fight for it. Rachel and I were doing just that, and I felt hopeful about the future we were building together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow around us, I squeezed Rachel's hand, knowing that while our journey wasn't perfect, it was ours. We were committed to navigating the complexities of love, trust, and forgiveness together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt confident that we would emerge stronger on the other side.